But first, the federal budget comes down tomorrow, and it's a real test of the Albanese government. It will be tempted to throw short-term cash relief to Australians as they struggle with the cost of energy, groceries, fuel, housing and more.
It's good to be here the day before what will be a Labor budget in every sense tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we will have $14.6 billion of cost of living relief targeted for those who need it most.
But to be responsible, to do what's right for the country, they must resist the temptation to spend too much and do the hard work needed to bring inflation back into that 2 to 3% range. Because if a government isn't prepared to take the hard decisions in its first year, then it never will. So what does that mean? Well, the hard work means reforming environmental laws that preference locking up land over wealth-creating projects. It means taking on the union stranglehold that makes Australian workplace laws among the most inflexible and expensive in the world. It means getting real about energy policy and backing the baseload supply needed to bring down the cost of electricity. It means boldly cutting the red tape and over-regulation that burdens our entrepreneurial streak with compliance, cost and administration without making anything better. It means taking the tough decisions to ruthlessly cut non-essential spending now, just like households around the country are being forced to do every day. As the next election approaches, Labor's will to resist a sugar hit of spending to boost public enthusiasm will trump the appetite to sell hard reform. If Labor isn't prepared to act now to bring your bills down, then they never will. Already there are signs that this is to be a classic tax and spend Labor budget. Higher taxes on those who produce in this country, like those in our minerals industry, and the kind of creeping budget blowouts that come from moves like indexing the grants that are given throughout the community services sector. Now, that kind of action might please those who work in that sector, and understandably, but ultimately it removes the drive to use taxpayer dollars with maximum efficiency. The impact of these kinds of creeping changes is so much bigger than it seems. Just in this budget, indexation of grants will cost $4 billion. Expect the same thing for increases to welfare payments like JobSeeker.
Well, this will be a responsible budget for Australians who are doing it tough. And central to that, probably the centrepiece of the budget, will be a cost of living package, which is broader than what has been speculated on, which prioritises the most vulnerable people, but which applies to more than one age cohort.
I don't dismiss for a moment that it is really hard to live on a welfare payment. It absolutely is. But there has never been a better time to get a job in Australia than right now. Employers are screaming out for staff, and literally anyone who is prepared to show up and give it a go can get a start. And every time we up welfare payments, we do two terrible things as a consequence. We increase inflation, making everything cost more for everyone. And we ask middle-class Australians, who bear the vast majority of this nation's tax burden, to pay even more at a time when they are already struggling too, with higher mortgages, high property prices, high grocery, fuel and energy costs, and higher costs for services. We should have compassion for those who are out of work. But given there are so many jobs available, we should have even more compassion for the people who are asked to carry those who do not work, whilst themselves struggling with the cost of living. That's particularly so, given that the amount of income tax paid by Australians has just cracked a record $300 billion. And these payments never go down once they've been lifted. They end up being a permanent cost to the budget. Changing pace, the blind spot for Labor is small business policy. Because its MPs and senators come from the union movement, and really only have history dealing with the big businesses with which unions deal, they always forget Australia's biggest employer is small business mums and dads. But times are tough for small businesses wherever they operate. Energy costs, higher contractor costs, rising inputs and finance costs are adding up to see so many on the brink of closing their doors. Small business owners will be watching carefully to see whether the instant asset write-off, which has been so important in giving small businesses the confidence to invest, is continued as a recognition of this hardship and as a sign of support in the form of lower taxes for those who press on in this difficult climate. But the most important thing to look out for in the budget is a vision for this country. So far, Jim Chalmers, the Treasurer and Doctor of being a Paul Keating fan, has shown himself to be big on platitudes and big on academic pontification, but low on action that would make a difference to the way Australians experience the economy.
And I want to congratulate particularly Jim Chalmers, our Treasurer. And Katie Gallagher, our Finance Minister.
They all sound pretty jubilant right now, but if Chalmers can't push past his academic and pontificating no-action ways, he risks wasting the privilege that is the chance to govern this nation with purpose. And I can't see any more important purpose right now than giving Australians the freedom to pursue their aspirations that comes with first being able to pay the bills.